Hear me well, good folk, for the tale I bring is not one of gallant knights in gleaming steel, nor of kings seated in lofty halls. Nay, this is the truth of war as it was suffered by the lowly and the doomed. Those who took the field with no hope of glory, who were given not the laurels of victory, but the cold bite of steel, the stench of death, and the mud beneath their feet. In this telling you shall walk in their worn boots, feel the weight of their fear, and know the lot of those whose names were never sung. If such truth stirs thy spirit, then mark this channel well, give thy like, and press the seal of subscribe, that more may hear of these forgotten souls and the cruel fates that bound them. Now let us step onto the field where the living envy the dead. Oft do folk speak of battle as if it were some noble sport, a field where valor meets honor and the righteous smite the wicked beneath a sunlit sky. But the field of war in the Middle Ages was no shining tourney ground. 'Twas a place of choking smoke, of crimsoned mud, of cries that chilled the marrow, a place where the lowliest of men were thrust forth, not for honor, but to die in another's stead. Their hands held no jeweled sword, their names graced no ballad. They were but fuel for the fire, blood for the soil, shadows in the chronicles of lords. Think not upon kings with their gilded banners, nor upon the knight in polished mail, whose steed is clad in barding bright. Think upon the ragged soul given a spear with a crooked shaft and a dented helm that scarce fit his brow. This was the vanguard, those poor wretches whose place in battle was chosen not by merit, but by misfortune. They stood at the fore, and the fore was the maw of death itself. When the cry was given and the host advanced, 'twas they who first took the storm. The enemy's shafts darkened the sky, falling as iron rain upon their ranks. Many fell ere their boots had muddied from the march. If the foe loosed stones from their great engines, it was the vanguard whose bones shattered beneath them. In the taking of castles, these were the men sent to scale walls slick with the blood of those who climbed before, boiling pitch and heavy stones greeting them from above. And if a mounted charge came thundering forth, they were the ones trampled into the earth before they could so much as set their spear. They were not chosen for bravery, but because their lives weighed least in the eyes of those who commanded. Oft were they peasants, drawn from plough and field, with but a day or two to learn the holding of a weapon. Few had coin enough to buy better place or stronger gear. Fewer still had family of name to shield them from such fate. They knew well their doom ere they marched. Some sickened and voided their guts ere the battle joined. Some shook so that their spear wavered like a reed in the wind. To flee was to die by the rope or the axe, for desertion was met with no mercy. And if by some strange favor of fortune they survived the first clash, the blood, slick ground awaited them still, for the battle cared not for who had endured the first storm it demanded all. No song was sung for the vanguard. No chronicler's quill scratched their names upon the page. They were sent to die loudly, to make the foe reveal his stratagems, to stumble upon hidden pits or cunning pikes that lay concealed in the grass. They were the testers of the field, the meat for the grinder, and they died knowing the worth of their life in their Lord's eyes was measured in minutes. Yet if the vanguard were the meat above the soil, the sappers were the worms beneath it. These men toiled in the darkness, hacking and clawing at the earth to bring down the mighty walls of castles. Armed with pick, mattock, and spade, they bent their backs beneath the ground, crawling through narrow tunnels where a man scarce could crouch. The air was foul and close, the earth pressing about them like a coffin not yet sealed. They dug toward the stone foundations of the enemy, seeking to weaken them so that the fortress might crumble. Danger was their constant bedfellow. At any hour the defenders might hear the muffled scrape of their tools and send men to counter. Mine, then would battle be joined in utter darkness, where neither man could see the other's face, but only feel the strike of steel or the stab of a dagger. The air was thin, for the torch that gave light did also steal breath. Smoke might be poured in, or water, or fire, and the tunnel would become a tomb. The very earth might betray them, collapsing without warning and smothering them in silence. If they succeeded, the wall would fall, and the knights would pour through to take the glory. The names of the Sappers were lost, their reward but a few coins, if they lived to spend them. And if they failed, none but they were blamed, though the fault might lie with ill-made tools or stone too thick to fell. Yet without them, many a siege would have lasted till the harvest failed and the host starved. Still they laboured, knowing each strike of their pick might be the one that loosed the wall, or the one that brought it down upon their heads. Above the ground, other men served as walls themselves, Pavis bearers. When crossbowmen took the field, their weapons could pierce the stoutest armour, yet the winding of the string was slow and perilous. Thus the Pavis bearer would go forth, a great shield of wood and hide in his hands, tall enough to hide a man entire. He would plant it before the archer, kneeling or bracing it with his own body, whilst the enemy loosed arrow and bolt without cease. To stand thus was to invite death. Arrows hissed by, stones from sling and engine struck, and should the foe charge, the bearer had naught but a short blade, if any, with which to ward himself. Many wore no armour, for the shield was thought protection enough, though a shaft from a longbow might pass clean through it. Some were bound to their shields with rope, so they could not flee, and if the enemy's horsemen broke through, these men were trampled beneath hooves or cut down without mercy. Yet without them, the crossbowmen could scarce stand a moment, and the battle would be lost ere it began. There were others too, who bore not arms for their own fight, but words for another's will. The messenger in battle was as vital as any sword arm, for without his tongue the commander's orders would never reach the men who must carry them out. He must ride or run through the chaos, through smoke and shouting, past friend and foe who could not tell him apart in the press. One wrong turn, one shaft loosed at random, and the order would die with him. Some messengers went mounted, spurring their beasts through mire and blood. Others ran afoot, slipping between combatants like a shadow. If caught by the enemy, they were slain outright, for their capture might betray the plan. If the order arrived, but the officer mistrusted it, the blame might still fall upon the poor soul who carried it. Oft were they punished for failure, not their own, for in the tumult of battle truth and lie were as tangled as the fallen dead. Yet still they bore the burden, knowing the fate of thousands might rest upon the breath they had left to speak. There were also the standard bearers, whose task was to keep aloft the colours of their lord. The banner was not mere cloth, it was the heart of the host. To see it fall was to feel the heart stop. Men would fight on, though their limbs failed, so long as their banner waved. Thus the bearer was ever marked for death by the foe, who sought to strike him down and cast the colours into the mud. The bearer could wield no shield, for both hands must grasp the pole. He might have no sword, for his duty was to stand, not to strike. His garb was bright, that all might see the banner in the smoke, and so all might see him too, even from far off as a target. Some had guards about them, but this did only draw more arrows to the spot. If the banner fell, another must seize it, even if it meant stepping over the fallen. To hold it aloft in rout was to be overtaken and slain, for the bearer could not flee as the others fled. Yet still they stood, for to let it fall was to let courage fail. Far from the clash of swords there laboured others in peril, the field surgeons and camp followers. The surgeons worked in tents or upon the bare earth, their tools simple and cruel, knives, saws, irons heated to glowing. They had no salves to banish infection, no knowledge of the unseen pestilence that crept into wounds. Limbs were taken in haste, without comfort but for strong drink or the hands of others to hold the man down. Around them lay the groans of the dying, the stench of blood and rot. They worked till their own strength failed, for the wounded were many and the hands to tend them few. The camp followers bore food, fetched water, mended garments, and after the battle gathered what could be salvaged from the fallen. Oft were they women, sometimes with children at their skirts, moving among the tents with wary eye. If the camp were overrun, they were the first to fall to the enemy's cruelty. Their lives hung upon the mercy of men who had little left of mercy after the day's slaughter. Without them, the host could not march a league, yet their names were not kept, nor their deeds remembered. And there were those set upon the flanks, places thought less perilous by the unwise, yet known to the cunning captain as the weakest points. The men on the flanks were oft the poorest trained, the worst armed, given but staves, spears, or axes fit for the hearth. The commander's mind did not set them there to win, but to hold long enough that the centre might strike true. Sometimes the flanks were left to falter on purpose, to lure the enemy in so they might be caught. In such a case, those on the flank were as sheep to the slaughter, given no hint of their fate. When the foe's riders swept round or their light troops darted in, the men on the flanks knew well that help would come late, if at all. To run was to be cut down from behind or hanged after for cowardice. To stand was to be overborne by steel and hooves, and when the fight was done, those who lived found themselves in the same place for the next battle, with no hope of escape but death. Their service was by design a sacrifice, and their deaths a coin to buy another man's victory. Such were the stations of war that no man sought, yet many were given, and in them was no romance, no glory, only toil, fear, and the shadow of death. But in truth, without these forgotten souls, many a battle famed in the chronicles would have been lost ere it began. Thus have we walked among the ranks of the forgotten, those who bore the worst labours and faced the most certain deaths upon the fields of medieval war. No shining armor shielded them, no song immortalized them, yet their blood bought the victories that crowned kings and filled the tales of knights. Let their memory not be swallowed by the dark, for though history forgot their names, we may still speak their story. If this telling hath stirred thy heart, give thy like, seal thy subscription, and join us again as we bring forth more truths from the age of sword and shield. Till our next meeting, may thy days be in peace, and may thy battles, should they come, be far kinder than those of old.